Okay, if I can have your attention, it is my distinct privilege to introduce John Hurlman. He is a Flora alumni, and he is also the relation of son-in-laws and sons, and he's got his own group back there, the own cheering section, and we're delighted to have him. He is driven from Bloomington after work to be here, and he'll be headed back. And so please give him the respect he deserves for his effort. Mr. John Hurlman.
Oh, you were driving me back.
Oh, there you go.
All right, well, it's been a while since I've given a speech in front of so many high school students. I think the last time was when I graduated, and that was about 23 years ago, so I know kind of what's on topic and what's cool has changed a little bit. So I try to be relevant. And actually, I wasn't that cool in the first place 20 years ago, so you guys are in for a treat. Anyway, yes, like Bill said, my name is John Hurlman. I graduated from Flora High School in 1994. I live in Bloomington, Illinois right now, but obviously I have plenty of family to come back to. That I think they're probably going to rename that the Hurlman in-laws section back there. There's so many of you, so thanks for coming, guys. I played 4 years, or 4 sports in high school. I played all 4 years as an athlete. I played 4 years as a football player, Coach Tackett, Coach Warren. I was both on teams with them. Then I played 4 years in basketball. In fact, this is my traveling basketball tie that I wore to away games. So my mom would be proud to know that I was able to dig this up after 23 years. So it's older than most of you guys. I played center on the football team, and when I started basketball, I think they decided not to switch that, so I played center on basketball as well. So I had a lot of experience there. And then I participated in track and field also. And on track and field, my primary sports were the shot put and the 2-mile run. If you guys aren't very familiar with track and field, the shot put and the 2-mile run don't usually go together. I was kind of a unicorn in the track and field world. And I know Smitty, you guys know Smitty, he always liked to make that comparison. The long distance shot putter was kind of unique. So I did that. And then I played 1 year of tennis. I wanted to kind of ease into my senior year, spring sport. And when you wanted to take it easy, at least back in my day, you played tennis, which for me kind of meant I was Joel Palace's ball boy. But that was a pretty good gig because Joel was in my ear. But through all of those things, I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun. I made a lot of good friends, had a lot of good experiences. And it's funny, one of the things I remember are older guys like me now coming to the athletes and telling me what a great time high school sports was. And they would usually say it in this really low voice, like, oh, you guys, this is the greatest time of your life, and you're never going to forget it. And I'd go back in a second and do it all over again. So I don't know if Tackett, if you've told him that yet or not, but if he hasn't told you seniors yet, he probably will pretty soon, because we heard that from our coaches when we were playing. How much fun they had, how great a time it was. And I remember thinking, you know, when you're 17 years old and somebody tells you this is the greatest time of your life, you're a little bit worried because you're thinking, I'm hoping I've got some good times ahead. I hope it's not all behind me. So I want to confirm with you guys that there's a lot more to come. You're going to have some great things that you can do with your lives after high school sports. And high school sports are going to contribute to those things. Because one of the things that those guys never told me when they talked about how great high school sports was is they never really said, how did high school sports make their lives great? Like, what were the great things that they took away from high school sports? So I want to tell you guys about some of those things and how I use them today, because it took me a while to remember what those things were. And for a while, I didn't realize I had those. In fact, this is probably only like 5 years ago. And at the time, I lived in Denver, Colorado. Actually, after Flora, I went to Kentucky I went to college at Champaign-Urbana, went to Kentucky for a year, went across the country to Los Angeles, and then ended up in Denver. So if you're curious about Kentucky and Los Angeles, I'm sure my mom and dad would be happy to tell you how I wasted time there for a few years. Yeah, thanks for your support, Mom. So anyway, I'm in Denver, Colorado. Denver's great, but it wasn't a great time at that point in our lives. I was married, I had a family, but we were kind of going through a rough patch. That's not the funny part. You want me to tell you how horrible it was? No, it was, we were having a downtime, and I know at the time I had a job with a software company. I know these days you hear a lot about software companies in California. They get bought out for, $50 billion and everybody retires a millionaire. And my software company was a little bit different. It was a startup, and it didn't really start up very well. It just kind of idled for a while. But I had kind of a unique payment structure. I agreed to work for them, and they agreed not to pay me. So for all you seniors looking for career advice, that's not the way you want to go. You want to find better opportunity than that. And then my wife's situation was a little bit similar. She was a nurse, but management had changed at her hospital, and so things weren't going very well there. We were kind of worried about her job too. So neither one of us had really good job opportunities going on. Then we had a house. It was kind of our starter home there in Denver. But this is in the middle of when the housing market dropped. And so we were underwater on our home. And I'll save you a Google later. Underwater means you owe more on your home than what it's worth. So you effectively are stuck there unless you want to cut a big check, which we couldn't because we weren't getting paid. It's pretty third grade math there, so I'm sure you guys are all good with that. So anyway, we couldn't move. We both had rough jobs, and to make matters worse, we had just had our third child. He was less than 1 year old, and all of our family was huddled here in Flora, Illinois. And as easy as it is to get them to come to the Baptist church, it's a little bit harder to get them to come to Denver, Colorado. That's not quite such an easy trip. So we didn't have any family, and so we were really kind of struggling at that time. And so I remember thinking, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this situation? And I looked for advice for members of our church, friends of ours, members of the community. I prayed a lot about it, and at some point, I feel like God just kind of dropped somebody in my lap to help me out and remember these things that I had forgotten before. Because he calls me up one day. I can't even remember how he got my name. I don't even remember what his name was, but we started talking, and I told him what was going on. I was trying to get business advice from him and job advice, and he stops me, and he says, well, did you play high school sports? And I thought, well, that's a stupid thing to say. Why would you want to know if I played high school sports? And he said, no, did you play high school sports? And I said, yeah, I did. And I told him about our teams. I told him about the things that I told you guys, about the games we won, and the tournaments we won, and individual accomplishments. And he said, well, you're going to be okay then. If you played high school sports, you're going to be okay. And that didn't quite make sense to me at the time. I didn't know how I was going to be okay unless he was going to write me some sort of, grant money for being some washed up high school athlete. But he said it's going to be all right because you developed some things as a high school athlete that you may not even realize that you developed. And so those are the things that I thought, well, I'll tell you guys a little bit about those things that maybe I forgot. Maybe those guys that told me that this was such a great time in your life forgot to tell me, so that someday when you graduate and you participate in teams later in life, you'll realize these things are really valuable. So one of the first things we talked about was integrity. And I learned that integrity was really about doing the right thing, trying to do the right thing. My teammates being able to trust, and my coaches being able to trust that I was going to do the right thing. Making those moral decisions. And you may not always get it right. I mean, obviously you're going to miss a block. I mean, I don't know, heaven forbid you drop each other at some point. But it's not about getting it right and not getting it right. It's about trying to do your best and doing it right. And it's funny, I brought something here today, but I noticed that you had these rocks out there in the dinner area, and I brought a rock that I got when I was a senior in high school. One of our coaches, his name was Ted Whitehead, he gave 5 of us seniors a rock like this. Mine says A, and they all had a letter of Flora in it. And he told me, John, I want you to have this rock. This rock symbolizes that you're one of the leaders of the team, that people look up to you, and that you're a man of integrity. And so I still have that rock to remind me about that. And so I thought integrity was a really good thing for me to keep in mind. One of the other things he told me about was confidence. High school sports really develops confidence. And that's not arrogance, and it's also not the absence of humility. It just means being able to, believe in yourself and believe in your team and believe in what you're doing. I mean, I know you guys know what confidence is. And I'm sure that your coaches tell you, believe you can win every game. Because what's the saying? Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And so that's what being confident is all about. In fact, I think it was Coach Warren's senior year, maybe. We played a team called Fairfield. I don't think you guys play Fairfield anymore. But they were the underdogs. And I bet there weren't too many people that believed we could beat Fairfield other than us. And we went out there, and these guys, they were seniors at the time. I was a sophomore. And I saw so much confidence in them. And they went out there, and they beat Fairfield at Fairfield, their homecoming night, as underdogs, 36-0. Scott, am I accurate there? 36-0. So, watching those guys and watching teammates win games like that and believe in themselves, that really meant a lot to me, and I understood what confidence was because of that. We also talked about compassion, and sometimes I think compassion is a weird thing to talk about with football players especially, because your job is to kind of tackle each other in the dirt. It doesn't seem like a very compassionate sport. But sports in general are some of the most compassionate activities we can get involved in. Whether we're helping a friend when they're down, when they're injured, maybe they got dumped the night before, it doesn't have to be, athletically related. It's just something about caring for your teammates and being there for them and making sure that they know you care. In fact, when I was in football my senior year, I had a teammate, and I didn't know much about his family life, but I didn't think it was that great. And I knew that no matter how hot it was outside, how cold it was outside, how much junk he had to carry around with him, he never had a ride home. And so I remember Mom carting me home from practice, and we gave this guy a ride home about every day, right, Mom?
Yeah, I think so.
No matter how muddy his pads were or what he had on or whatever, we always gave him a ride. And that was one of those things that made me think, this is a sport, or sports in general, can really instill compassion in people. And so I want to make sure that you guys understand that's a really cool and important part of it. And then we also talked about drive. And I love that word because drive means so many things. I mean, I Googled it just so I could see all the synonyms. And you're talking about determination and ambition and initiative and purpose and willpower. It's what gets you to work hard while you practice. And I know all of you have drive because you practice, multiple times a week. And I know when I practiced, when I was in football and basketball and sports, you would sometimes get there before school. Obviously, you're staying for, an hour and a half or 2 after school. You're coming in on weekends. You're working at home. I remember 2-a-days before the season started that we would do. And that takes a lot of drive and determination and perseverance. And if you guys can remember that when you get into, college or family or careers or whatever you get into after that, it's going to take you really far because drive leads to so many other things, like I said, hard work, leadership, and things that are really valuable. So those are some of the things that we went over, and I thought, wow, that's really important to keep in mind, because you guys, there are not a lot of people in this world that I feel like has all those qualities. There's a lot of people and organizations that could use people like that with those qualities. I mean, I know, business owners in the back that would love to have people who had, integrity and compassion and confidence and drive. So remember that you have those things and use those things. So we talked about one more thing, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I brought this, and I don't know if anybody would know what this is or not. It's a trophy. Baseline, we've got a swim trophy here. But do you know what kind of trophy it is? It's a participation trophy, yes. In fact, I'm kind of lame. This isn't even my participation trophy, so that's even worse. And I know participation trophies, it kind of gets a bad rap, and I get that. But as you maybe you go to college, maybe you have a family, as you start your career, it is so important to participate in the things in your life. And you guys are doing that right now as high school athletes. You're participating in things that not everybody is doing, and you're gaining these skills and these characteristics. And out in the world, whether you're running a business someday or leading a team of employees someday, you're serving a local school or a community organization or a church, you have to participate, because the things that you guys have, like I said, the world needs those things. And I've got a book that actually my father-in-law, Bill, gave me. Not a fan. He gave this to me a while ago. And this is a really good illustration of participation. Now, this book is about how to participate in your Christian life, how to serve God, serve others, make disciples, things like that. But the idea is you don't want to be a fan, and you guys aren't fans in what you're doing. You're not in the stands. You're playing the game. You're out there participating. And that's what this is about, is not being a fan, participating in your life. In this case, participating in church. And I'd like to say, if you're going to participate somewhere, I would argue that there's no better place where you can change somebody's life or have a significant impact on somebody's life than some sort of church team that you can serve. Because there are a lot of teams that you can be on once you get past high school sports. It's not just a one and done here. And some of these teams I've served on lately that have been church teams have been some of the more important ones in my life too. So recently, for example, I started teaching Sunday school for my daughter. I taught last year when she was in first grade, and I'm teaching again now that she's in second grade. And one of the kids in her class, his parents just recently went through a divorce. And this kid's 7 years old, so it's kind of tough on him. But his mom emailed me a couple weeks before the second grade semester started and asked if I was going to be his teacher. And I said, well, yeah, I am. And she said, well, that's really good to hear, because that will get him to go to church. And he really likes you. He really likes the students in the class. And now that I know that, now that I know that you're kind of this stable thing in his life, I know he'll come. And so there's not a lot of things where you can have an impact like that on somebody, much less, a 7-year-old. So I was really glad to participate in that. There was something else I did recently. I went to an event called The Great Banquet not too long ago. And it's a Christian men's retreat where you go, you spend time with God, you spend time with others, learn about yourself, learn about your relationship with God. And after I did this, I immediately wanted to serve others that were going through a similar experience. So I served on the women's team the week after as just someone who helped out at dinner time and in the kitchen. And it was interesting because a lot of these women that attended the great banquet meal, they don't really get served that often at their house. They take care of everybody else. There's not too many instances where they're being taken care of. And so to see how much that meant to them, that somebody was taking care of them and doing things for them, well, that meant a lot to me to be a part of, and I know it was important for them. And the last example that I had thought of was this small group that I started through church about a year or two ago. And usually that's a group of church members who may be similar in age or may live near each other. And you can get together to pray, do Bible study, just share your lives, that sort of thing. But when you get together with a group like that, it can, lives get messy. And we actually have 2 guys that have recently lost their jobs. We had one guy who was actually on trial for financial fraud that he got caught up in, but didn't commit. But he was still found guilty, and he's going to go to prison. So it's like this real messy stuff. But the fact that I was there, that I could hold their hand and pray for them and put my arm around them and be there for them was an opportunity that I wouldn't have if I hadn't participated in that sort of thing. So I just share that to let you guys know that there's some great teams that you can participate on after this to use all those things I talked about, like integrity and compassion and competence and drive. So I want you to think about those things, as you grow out of high school, they're there. And I don't want to leave you hanging on the Denver story. So after I got my great advice, I decided that, I was going to start using these things to participate more in my life, to find some purpose that I could use. So we ended up renting our house to somebody so we could buy a new house. We doubled our effort in finding new jobs, and I eventually got a job in Bloomington, and my wife got a job in Bloomington. So then we sold both houses, and we moved to Bloomington, and then we suckered all of those folks back there into driving up to Bloomington once in a while to help out with the 3 kids. And so it all had a happy ending, but a lot of it was kicked off by this conversation where I really learned how high school sports can make you great. So I think it's a really important message for you guys to remember, because like I said, this is something that can last your whole life, even though high school sports is over. So on that note, I know I used to always end speeches with a quote, because that's what you used to do when you ended speeches, but I think all you guys put quotes on Facebook all the time and Instagram and Snapchat, and so you've heard them all. So I'm going to do something completely uncool, and I'm going to give you a homework assignment. It's not due tomorrow. It's not due next week into the year. This is due in 20 years. You've got homework, and your due date is October 19th, 2037. By then, and if I meet one of you and it's not done, I can't think of an excuse that's going to work. But by then, I want you guys to find a team outside of your usual, family or work or whatever, where you can make a difference. Maybe it's participating in the PTO, maybe it's serving meals to people through church, or serving church in other ways. Maybe it's helping the elderly. It could be one of many different things. But take that initiative to participate in a team outside of your normal routine, and share these gifts and these skills that you guys have developed. And then maybe someday when you're done with that, you can be like me, and you can tell a bunch of high school kids at a banquet how great high school sports was, but how you can use those skills to make your life great in the future. So I hope you guys took something away from this that you can use in the future, and I appreciate you giving me time to talk to you. Thank you.
John, thank you very, very much. Probably you didn't know it, but I'm older than John.
You never tell.
God bless you guys. I know I like you. The bottom line here is, and that last 3 or 4 pews back here will attest, whenever he's talking about finding a team, whenever he's talking about integrity and those kind of things, when you grow up, you will never find a happier moment than to know that your child is married to a person of integrity, honesty, loyalty, work ethic, and those are all the things that you can learn from cheerleading and teamwork and those kind of things. It will last you forever. You guys have been a great group. I'm going to ask one of the football fans, he's wearing Kansas City, really? Rob McKnight and his family absolutely love Flora High School sports. And you'll find them in the gymnasium, although they don't have a child out there playing. You'll find them on the tennis courts, even though they don't have a child playing. You'll find them in all of those branches. And I will tell you that he's a man of God, and I'm going to ask him to dismiss us this evening.
May not have children in high school, but we do have daycare children. We got a few here tonight. We're not going to pick on you or name who they are. But okay, would everyone please stand? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving this church a chance to witness to all these young people. Just be with all these kids as they go out and play the football game tomorrow night. Just keep them safe and be with the cheerleaders and the managers and the coaches and just be with them in every way. Be with us always in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, please,
Nice evening. Thanks for being here.